Good morning, everybody, and we'll just wait for that echo to stop. Good morning, everybody. Your microphone and okay. I think if you turn off. Let's see if that helps. Yes, it does. Good morning, everybody. Before we start today's cabinet meeting, I want to express my deepest sympathies to the friends and families of the 4 teenagers from Shrewsbury who were found dead yesterday in North Wales. I'm sure that I speak for everyone from the council and the county in expressing our thoughts and prayers to their families and friends following this heartbreaking tragedy. The community in Shropshire is strong, and I know that people right across the county will feel great sadness and that they are rallying together to show their support. Specialist teams from our education service are offering their support to the communities around Shrewsbury colleges and Millbrace Secondary School, as many people will be affected by this tragedy. I'd also like to thank the emergency services for their work in such difficult circumstances, not just in North Wales, but those who had to deliver the heartbreaking news. I ask that we pause for a moment to remember Jevon, Harvey, Wilf and Hugo, and allow those close to them the privacy to grieve in peace. Thank you, members. So on to the business of today. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. And can I also ask members to identify your name before speaking so that it is clear to those watching the meeting. Item number 1, apologies for absence. We don't have any apologies today. Although I did see Councillor. Oh, he's on the end. Sorry, Julian. Sarah, I thought I saw you. Yes, we don't have any apologies for today. Disclosable interest. Does anybody have any interest to declare for today's meeting? Okay, item number 3, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of October 2023. I am happy to propose those. Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Ian Nellens, I second.
Thank you very much. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. So moving on to item number 4, which is the public question time. We have 2 questions from the public this morning. The first question is from Dr. Jamie Russell. Is the monitoring on? Yeah, that's down to you, is it, Tim? Thank you.
Thank you. So the question is this. When speaking about the North West Relief Road, Councillor Dan Morris recently told the Shropshire Star the local planning authority has met literally hundreds of times, minuted meetings with Severn Trent Water. Severn Trent are solely responsible for the quality of the water. And there's 2 parts to the question. Number 1, could Councillor Morris please confirm how many minuted meetings exactly the council has held with Severn Trent Water over this issue? And number 2, it is my understanding that the Environment Agency has statutory responsibility for protecting the quality of strategic groundwater resources like the SPZ1 borehole at Shelton. If this is true, please could Councillor Morris correct the public record?
Thank you, Tim. Answering the question, Councillor Dan Morris, portfolio holder for Highways.
Thank you, Leader. The Council and Severn Trent Water Limited have been in contact regularly since 2019 by email, telephone and also through more formal minuted meetings. These interactions number into the many hundreds in total, and there are around 125 minuted meetings alone as part of this engagement. Whilst the Environment Agency does indeed have statutory responsibility around protecting groundwater resources, including the SPZ1 at Shelton, it is wholly accurate to say that only Severn Trent Water have a responsibility for the supply of clean drinking water to their customers.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. The second question is from Mr. Malcolm Andrew on behalf of the Trefonham Rural Protection Group, and Mr. Andrew is with us in the room. Please come and take a seat at the table, sir. When you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Malcolm Andrew, Chair of Trevona Rural Protection Group. We wish to raise concerns on the progress of the local plan examination. We hope that you've all had a chance to read our concerns about the progress since the plan review commenced in 2016 and the risk of further delays if the inspector's concerns raised in February are not resolved very soon. We note the officer's letter of the 16th of November since our question to the inspectors, but this seems to just seek clarification of their concerns rather than providing answers. Therefore, we would request an update on the examination, in particular, progress on the councillor's response to the inspector's questions, ID 28 and ID 36 from February and October, and assurances that the officers are being provided with the necessary resources and expertise to address the inspector's concerns, particularly considering the third-party legal protocols that have been served by other people. And thirdly, what alternative solutions are being considered for potential main modifications to address the inspector's concerns, so that these that are required to make the plan for the period 2016 to 2038 sound and recommended for adoption as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Answering the question, Councillor Chris Schofield, Portfolio Holder for Planning and Regulatory Services. Excuse me.
Thank you for your questions. On your first question, the council has formally written to the local plan inspectors with a request for clarification on a number of points arising from the recent ID 36 letter. This letter is available to view on the examination library web pages. The inspectors have indicated they are working on a response to this request, and once the council receives this, we will be able to provide a definitive time frame for a response. On your second question, it is considered the council currently has adequate resources and expertise available to progress the local plan examination, but we will of course keep this under review as we understand more fully the extent of any further work required. And on your third question, it is considered the inspectors are now only seeking additional material related to the sustainability appraisal work supporting the local plan. Although clarification on this point is being sought, should there be a need to review the strategy of the plan, including any further main modifications, the council will do this in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Thank you, Chris. Moving on to item number 5, which is member questions. First question is from Councillor Rob Wilson, who I can't see online. Are you going to be? Yes. Thank you, Councillor Evans. We'll be reading that on Mr. Wilson.
I thought Kate had things first.
I've got it the wrong other way around. If that's what it says on the agenda, I apologise. We'll take Kate's question first then. Kate, are you online? No, Julia's reading that one. Okay. Thank you, Julia.
Kate Halliday. Several residents have contacted me with concerns regarding an increasingly difficult situation regarding on-street parking in Old Coleham, Shrewsbury, where there are no parking restrictions. The immediate area does, however, have parking restriction and is very close to the town centre, so it's regularly used by non-residents to park and walk into town, making it very difficult for residents to find an on-street parking place close to their homes. This is particularly difficult for those with disabilities, as there are no alternative parking on nearby streets due to current restrictions. The situation is exacerbated by ongoing development in the area, with 43 new flats being built in the immediate vicinity, which has closed a number of existing on-street parking places for use as a loading bay. Once completed, although the flats each have one parking space allocated within the development, the problem may well worsen, as it's likely some flats will have more than one car per household. Therefore, some residents are requesting that the area is considered for on-street residents' parking permits. In early 2020, the team responsible confirmed Bellevue would be considered for consultation regarding on-street residents' parking permits. However, the pandemic put a pause to this. I would be grateful if the portfolio holder would answer the following questions. 1. Is the council still considering new locations for on-street residents' parking permits? And 2. If new areas are being considered, when will the Bellevue area be assessed for on-street residents parking permits?
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Answering the question, Councillor Dan Morris, portfolio holder for highways.
Thank you for the question. There's always a complex balance to be struck in terms of growth and development alongside residential development and stimulating trade and commercial activity. Parking permit schemes alone are rarely a panacea for parking woes and are both costly, time-consuming and rigid. Our in-commission movement strategy will help us better understand the risk and reward of future development in Shrewsbury and across Shropshire. Similarly, you'll be pleased to know that our upcoming Parking and Charge Review report in December 23 identifies the need for a stronger approach in terms of protecting residents' parking amenities, particularly in residential areas close to the town centres and in particular Shrewsbury. I understand from officers that the needs of Coleham are already considered amongst the strongest contenders.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Buckley, does Kate have a supplementary?
Yes, you sent through a supplementary. So could you confirm that residents' parking schemes are no longer being considered?
I can't confirm or deny that.
Not that I'm being picky this morning, but if you look at the agenda, Councillor Buckley, Councillor Rob Wilson's question is first. However, yeah, that's the answers, not the agenda item. Anyway, I'm not going to be picky, but I am, because otherwise I get confused. So can we go back to the original agenda schedule of these? So the first question is from Councillor Rob Wilson. Councillor Evans, I understand you're going to read that one.
Thank you, Chairman. Do you want me to read, it's in 3 parts, do you want me to read all 3 parts or do one part at a time?
Well, if you do one part at a time,
Okay.
Councillor Morris can
I'll do the first part then. On the 27th of September 2022, the Executive Director of Place shared a briefing note on the North West Relief Road with the Member of Parliament for Shrewsbury and Atcham. The briefing note included information about the cost of the scheme, including inflationary pressures. Which was redacted on the FOI release. An email the following day suggests that following a conversation, this sensitive information could be shared with the chair of the Shrewsbury and Atcham Conservative Association. This information was not shared with elected members. Please, can you provide an explanation?
Answer the question, Councillor Dan Morris, portfolio holder for highways.
Thank you for the first part of your question. The email you refer to, dated the 28th of September, is clearly marked as confidential. The message makes it clear that the information be kept restricted. In the context of data protection, restricted means the information is limited to those who it was sent to. The financial information you refer to relates to information for the local MP to support his efforts in lobbying government for inflation-adjusted financial support for this project.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Evans.
Part two of the question, Chairman, is on the 6th of December 2022, the Member of Parliament for Shrewsbury and Atcham arranged a meeting between Shropshire Council and the Environment Agency and asked if members of the Shrewsbury and Atcham Conservative Association could be present. Were members of the Shrewsbury and Atcham Conservative Association present at this meeting?
Councillor Morris.
Thank you. A meeting did not take place 6th of December due to lack of availability of Shropshire Council invited attendees. As far as we are aware, this meeting did not take place on an alternative date.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Evans, final part of the question.
Thank you. The final part. On Friday, the 4th of August 2023, the portfolio holder for highways met with a Member of Parliament for Shrewsbury and Atcham and the Environment Agency in Westminster. Emails on Wednesday, the 2nd of August, suggest that a member of the Shrewsbury and Atcham Conservative Association was to be invited to this meeting. The Chief Executive Officer of the Environment Agency refused this request. Had Shropshire Council agreed to this request?
Councillor Morris.
The emails you refer to were sent by the Shrewsbury MP, so you will have to ask him what his intent was. We would not have been asked to approve the attendees as the meeting was not arranged by Shropshire Council. However, I can confirm that a meeting took place on the 4th of August with the CEO of the EA that involved myself as portfolio holder and MP Kaczynski as Shrewsbury MP, along with Scott Sherlock from the MP's office and a secretary from the Environment Agency.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Is there a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Can I say I'm amazed, absolutely amazed, that officers of this council talk with members of the public and exchange confidential information with those which is not available to members. To treat members of the public and give them restricted information, and obviously not governed by anything, and when asked at council for updates on the cost of the North West Relief Road, to be refused and to be told that this information is not available. And then at a council meeting, there was a line on a budget paper which showed 95 million for the North West Relief Road, and we're told that was a mistake and it shouldn't be there. But to learn by these emails
Point of order,
message that this was here, can I ask?
Is this a supplementary question or is this just a statement?
There is a supplementary, Chairman. Can I ask that the officers of this authority investigate and assure me and others that this is not normal and no officers will meet with any member of the public and exchange confidential information without informing members? Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Evans, I have to say I find that supplementary slightly odd, to be honest. Because if you were attending a meeting in Parliament with your MP from North Shropshire and you were taking with you the chairman of the Liberal Democrats in North Shropshire, that meeting would not be able to take place if agreement hadn't been given that information was shared. It was shared in a restricted format. That information has never been shared anywhere else. And actually, once again, you've put 2 and 2 together and made 5. The information that was shared did not contain specific financials, but estimates. So once again, this is just politicking. It really is. And I have to say, I actually queried whether this question should have been allowed, because for most of it, we can't answer the question. Because this is not about Shropshire Council, this is about the MP's office. So I don't really understand why the question was asked in the first place. And no, I'm not letting you come back in.
The right to reply, Chairman, under the Constitution. I think I do have the right to reply.
I'm not taking this in. It's just simply politicking.
It isn't, Chairman. It is.
To the next question, which is from Councillor Peter Broomhall. Peter, if you'd like to come to the desk and start when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Peter Broomhall, Wem Division. I'm concerned the recent planning applications coming before Wem Town Council and Wem Rural Parish Council have written into the application that states contributions to Colmere Ramsar site for visitors management mitigation measures. The one example I've put forward is the planning application for 100 houses on Low Hill Road has been passed without line permission. It states that contributions are to be given to Colmere Ramsar site. The planning department state that the developments will put pressure onto the Colmere site from the residents of Wem. I would like to know what data they have used to come to this conclusion. We have many recreation sites in Wem where the money could be spent for the residents of Wem. Shropshire Council own 3 play areas in Wem, which the Town Council maintains with no monetary help from Shropshire. A lot of residents of Wem use Corbett Wood for their recreation walks, so why does the Colmere site take preference? I'd like to know that. Wem Rural Parish Council have the Wem Moss site and Wixel Moss, which residents of Wem use could benefit from the extra income. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Answering the question, Councillor Chris Schofield, portfolio holder for Planning and Regulatory Services.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Peter, for your question. The National Planning Policy Framework places high importance on protection of biodiversity interests, and new development should minimise impacts on biodiversity. Colmere is both nationally and internationally designated for its nature conservation importance. Colmere has a recreation, mitigation and monitoring strategy, which has been informed by a visitor survey commissioned by the council. Development in parts of North Shropshire have a recreational impact on Colmere. Colmere is susceptible to disturbance of habitats through trampling, as well as interference with habitat management, and also increased nitrification of habitats, primarily due to dog fouling. Financial contributions are sought from residential development in the north of the county to mitigate adverse effects of increased visitor numbers on Colmere and maintain the integrity of this Ramsar site. The council uses developer contributions, SIL, and Section 106 funds collected from new development to mitigate the impacts of development. Generally, SIL is used to mitigate the strategic and cumulative impacts resulting from a number of new developments in an area. While Section 106 funding is secured on site-specific basis as required and is defined for use by a legal agreement between the developer and the council, where collected to mitigate the impact of development in the area, these developer contributions are therefore available for use within the Wem Place plan area.
Thank you, Chris. Peter, have you got a supplementary?
Yes. You may say that Colmere has a recreation, mitigation and monitoring strategy, which has been informed by a visitor survey commissioned by council. Have you any data to show this? Because we have many sites in the area of North Shropshire. Have any other sites had a survey?
I'd have to write to you on that one, Peter. I think that the survey is the data, but I'm not absolutely 100% sure.
Well, I would like to see some data.
Okay.
Thank you. We can sort that out for you. Thank you, Councillor Brimore. The next question is from Rosemary Dartnell. Councillor Julia Buckley is going to read the question.
At the recent North Planning Committee meeting held to determine the proposed North West Relief Road application, shortcomings in Shropshire Council's decision-making were highlighted in the proceedings. For example, there was little reference to the environmental damage that will be caused should the road ever be built. The harms include, but are not limited to, enormous construction carbon dioxide emissions, which dwarf any operational benefits claimed through the road's lifetime. A long-standing concern about contamination of the aquifer beneath the construction site and how this may impact drinking water quality, as well as the felling of 9 priceless veteran oak trees. It was also evident that the planned road has been designed to have a 60 miles an hour speed limit because, the planning officer said, people around here are used to travelling at 60 miles an hour. Lower, more appropriate limits were apparently not considered. A lower speed limit would have put less constraint on the carriageway form and perhaps have led to fewer trees being felled. Please can you clarify how many planning committee members, including subs, have completed the carbon literacy training necessary to underpin sound place planning and evidence-based decision making by the council on behalf of Shropshire residents present and future? And secondly, why the North West Relief Road is intended to have a 60 mile an hour speed limit without having made careful consideration of lower speed limits on the grounds of safety, irretrievable environmental damage and cleaner air.
Thank you, Julia. Councillor Dan Morris, portfolio holder for highways.
Thank you for your question. In the preparation of the outline business case for the North West Relief Road, Shropshire Council was charged with meeting the business case requirements as stipulated by the Department for Transport. One of the key monetisable benefits of the road in building a positive business case is the improvement in journey time reliability when compared with the current through town or Southern A5 options in connecting Churncut to Battlefield. In order to maximise the benefits of the road, therefore, the decision was taken to pursue a 60 mile an hour carriageway on the chosen alignment after examining many other alternatives in routing and speed. These alternatives were fully laid out in the Planning Committee report published for the 31st of October Northern Planning Committee and were previously endorsed by full council on the 16th of May 2019 Shrewsbury North West Relief Road DFT programme entry. The current alignment by design now avoids as many sensitive ecological areas as possible including within the constraints of the location of the Severn Trent Water Facility on the River Severn and the existing housing development at Dalton Drive. Where unavoidable clashes have occurred, these are to be managed responsibly and comprehensively with a mitigation and compensation strategy that has now been accepted by the LPA. Further to the motion by Council in September 2021 to develop climate change emergency mitigation training for all teams across the Council, including Cabinet and other members, Cabinet and members of the Executive Management Team completed accredited carbon literacy training in Jan 22, and the Council was subsequently accredited as a carbon literate organisation to the bronze level in April 2022. During 22-23, the Council has trained 3 staff as internal carbon literacy trainers and 3 further cohorts of staff and senior managers, amounting to 27 in all, have now completed carbon literacy training. Training for a further 15 staff will be provided during November, December, and further training is being arranged specifically for staff involved in the commissioning of external suppliers in early 2024 to help address other aspects of the motion agreed in September 21. This has already helped to generate more widespread understanding and ownership of the causes of climate change across the whole Council, as well as furnishing key decision makers with appropriate knowledge and awareness. Carbon literacy training has not yet been offered to other members, including Planning Committee members, but this is planned during 2024. It is understood that some members, including some Planning Committee members, are already accredited as carbon literate, although this isn't a requirement to sit on the Planning Committee.
Thank you, Dan. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, Councillor Rosemary Dartler was sent through a supplementary. Carbon literacy training is essential basic knowledge our decision makers should be armed with as they carry out the important tasks they are charged with. How many of the 11 North Planning Committee members have this accreditation, and how many with accreditation voted to approve the North West Relief Road application? And the answer on the speed limit, should the road ever be built, was chosen to enhance comparative travel speeds of alternative routes rather than to improve safety, environmental damage or clean air. Travelling unimpeded on a 4-mile road stretch at 40, 50 or 60 miles an hour takes between 4 and 6 minutes. Given the likelihood of traffic queues at the north end of the road, is the Council really proposing to spend over £200 million for such minimal gain? Does Councillor Morris think the full business case will stack up?
Thank you, Councillor Lockley. Councillor Morris.
I'm afraid I don't know the figures on who's trained on the Northern Planning Committee, but I'm sure someone could answer that question. With regard to the full business case for the the Northwest Relief Road, I think the case will be made in front of Council next year, and I look forward to that process being debated in Council.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Morris. Moving on to the next question, which is Councillor Kev Hardy, who I think is there. When you're ready, Councillor Hardy.
The Council have published an update on spend discretionary school transport. Changes include new ways to increase independence for children, young people and families, whilst balancing the costs to Shropshire Council taxpayers, including independent travel training, where the student is provided with support to access public transport or walk cycle, helping them to gain greater independence. Personal transport budgets, where parents, carers can take control of providing transport for their child, supported by a financial payment from the council. Closer working with schools to consider peers sharing where possible, and parents receiving travelling expenses. And my question is, first part, in what form will students receive travel training?
Thank you for your question.
Sorry, yeah. Well, Councillor Hurst-Knight will answer the question in parts.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Hurst-Knight.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Pardy. So the first part, Enable Shropshire will be delivering the training and have successfully delivered several travel training placements on behalf of passenger transport for Shropshire pupils and students across the county for a number of years. In addition, Enable provide this offer commercially to other local authorities. Enable will organise the training through liaison with parent carers and meeting with the student themselves and discussing a training programme that reflects their individual needs. The training itself will be in how to assess the appropriate public transport network for attending their educational setting, whilst at the same time providing those skills for that young person to access public transport independently beyond those settings. We are also exploring how we can extend this offer through the education provision attended by the young person as part of their preparation for adulthood offer. Thank you.
Next question, Councillor Bartley.
Okay, apologies to Councillor Hurst-Knight. I omitted to thank you for the replies. Second part is, how is the new policy and charges being communicated and actioned with parents?
Councillor Hurst-Knight.
Thank you. Travel training is an option that we have offered for a number of years to all parent carers, where it is practical alternative to travelling on a taxi or shared vehicle. We are keen to expand this offer as we believe it has strong benefits to the young person developing confidence and independence as they prepare for adulthood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Pardee.
Third part, are parents only eligible if a student is attending school full time?
Councillor Hurst-Knight.
Thank you. The policy is full-time attendance based on the start and the end of the school day, but in liaison with our SEND team, we do look at individuals on a case-by-case basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pardee. Last part.
And finally, how does it work if a student is on a reduced timetable?
Councillor Hurst-Knight.
Thank you. As above, we will follow our policy, but we'll explore this on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. Councillor Pardee, have you got a supplementary?
Yeah, can I find it? It's first of all, can I just say with the greatest respect, I didn't think you answered part 2 of the question. The question asks about the change in policy and how changes will be communicated and actioned with parents. There's no real explanation within your answer, but that's with respect. Yeah. So the question I have, the second question, does the new transport policy advantage all children who, today or in the future, require or will require the skills of a special educator? If so, how?
Thank you, Councillor Pardee. Councillor Hurst-Knight.
Thank you.
I'm not sure that I didn't answer the second part of the question, but we can have a conversation outside the meeting to make sure you're happy, Councillor Pardee. As always, we will honour our statutory right to transport the children that we need to, but we are also doing further training for this. You know, we really are looking at how we prepare our young people for adulthood. So we do this in line with the training that's offered, but it's the training that's been offered for years, but also working with the educational providers. But happy to pick up a further conversation with you, Councillor Pardee.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And finally, the last question comes from Councillor Andrew Sherrington, who I think is online. No, not online. Not in the room. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I can ask it on behalf of Councillor Sherrington. There is widespread perception that the distribution of road repair spending is unfair, and that items have to be repeatedly submitted to Fix My Street before they can get done. To determine if this is correct, I would ask, what is the end-to-end process for the receipt of road repair requests, the collation and prioritisation of requests, instructions to contractors and monitoring of the work done? This should include how the process is controlled, by who, what reporting measures are used to understand the effectiveness and efficiency of the process. How is a fair distribution of spending ensured?
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Dan Morris, portfolio holder for highways.
Thank you for the question. Shropshire Council has a schedule of routine highway inspection carried out by qualified highway inspections who will identify safety issues that require repair. Some issues are reported to the council via one of the many reporting routes. All of these are captured within our management system and allocated the appropriate highways technician for follow-up action if required. We currently have a backlog of defects, which is the case for the vast majority of highway authorities across the country. However, through a range of service improvements and efficiencies, we have seen our defect backlog fall considerably since the start of the year. In terms of larger carriageway repairs and schemes, these are subject to a data-led process which draws together intelligence on network condition, customer inquiries and reactive defects recorded on the link of the carriageway. This excuse me. This intelligence is analysed to determine a priority programme of maintenance, which is validated by the area teams. This structured process for decision making follows the current best practice called asset management, which is endorsed by the Department for Transport. The council's agreed highways asset management policy is publicly available on the council website.
Councillor Morris. Have you got a
Supplementary, this is on behalf of both of us, and that is a highways asset management policy. I understood a discussion took place a while ago, and the use of the asset management policy to determine which roads were repaired first was going to be used only in conjunction with the use of the road and the importance it was to the local residents. Am I right in remembering that, or is it just asset policy? Is it just asset management policy which now dictates where and how often the roads are done and their priority? Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Morris.
I've no idea, but I am very pleased to note that the government has recently announced extra £3.5 million to allocate towards Shropshire Council's road repairs this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing that put in place.
I expect we can get a written answer for you on that one, or get the written answer for Councillor Sherrington, because I'm pretty sure that my recall of that, Councillor Evans, is that the asset management policy is used in conjunction, or is actually part of the asset management policy is about looking at the way the roads are used, but we'll get a written response for you on that one.
Thank you, Chairman.
No worries. Okay, moving on to item number 6, which is scrutiny items. We have no scrutiny items today. I have a feeling they're going to be like buses, that at the next meeting we may well have quite a number. Item number 7 is the annual health and safety performance report 2022-23. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. It's Councillor Gwilym Butler, Portfolio Holder for Finance, Corporate Resources and Communities. Leader, I present the annual health and safety report, and firstly would like to thank Carol and the team for the refreshed style and layout of the report, which makes it easier to read and understand. Having a healthy organisation is a key cornerstone to ensure we can deliver on the Shropshire Plan, and this report is a major component of delivering that. A key result for me is that over the last 12 months of this report, there have been no issues reported to the HSE, which again is a great response to our staff working well. Ensuring our staff are well is vital to this organisation. I'm particularly pleased with the wellbeing signposting and support available to staff. This includes financial wellbeing, walking and talking, giving permission to staff to engage with wellbeing, access to work, mental health support and cost of living support and signposting. Occupational health continues to support and have interventions. There is a raise in referrals, which is good, and we encourage managers to refer staff for early intervention and support where appropriate. Marches Energy are shortlisted to do a webinar for staff around saving money on heating bills and home insulation. When we look at safety data and staff absence, Shropshire is performing well within the averages within the sector. Moving forward, the key challenges and priorities for the future is maintaining compliance, our statutory roles with fire wardens, first aiders, slips, trips and falls. There never seems to be one reason or trends, so the importance of good housekeeping around the organisation is vital. And more importantly as well is the wellbeing of the staff. Signposting, support and activities, and I think we really need to be on the ball at all times with this. I think at this stage, although it doesn't fall in Carol's remit of the health and safety team, that I'd like to mention the safety of this organisation around cybersecurity and data protection. And we all need to ensure that both members and staff maintain their training up to date. We saw on the news yesterday the issue the British Library have had. You know, it can affect anybody, and you might not think it's important, but when you come into work one day and you can't get access to your emails, you'll know it's important then. Before I finish, Leader, a big vote of thanks goes out to the team for keeping us safe. This sometimes isn't seen as anything very sexy, but it is vitally important. And their forward thinking, helping to maintain our healthy organisation within the Shropshire Plan. I move the report to be noted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gwilym. Do I have a seconder for that report? Councillor Carroll, did you want to speak now?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'd like to echo everything Councillor Butler has said and also thank him as well as his team for the newly refreshed style, which I think we can all agree makes it a lot more accessible and readable to those of us who don't live, eat and breathe the world of health and safety in the same way that he does.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Evans and Councillor Buck.
Thank you, Chairman. Congratulate all involved in this. It is an important area. Staff are the most important part for us and the residents of Shropshire. But ask a question about 5.1 in the report. Financial implications. There are no financial implications associated with this report. There may be future financial implications, and then it goes on progress to ensure that although these will be approved by senior managers before they are progressed, can I be assured that no policy will be put in place without that coming back to members? And I am conscious that in another organisation I'm a member of, there was a reference about some delays in information being provided to them because of reductions in staff numbers. Can I be assured that the staff numbers are there and adequate to do the work that is already been done by that department, but will be done in the future? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Buckley. Chairman. Thank you, Roger. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, and I welcome the report. Could I draw your attention, please, to page 9, where there are some graphs which disaggregate the nature or reasons for sickness, absence across Shropshire Council employees. I'm rather concerned to see that 25% of all absence by Shropshire Council employees is due to anxiety, stress or depression. What worries me further is that the number was almost identical for the year before. So we seem to have a persistent high level of stress and anxiety amongst our staff. I'd like to know that you have noticed this, and I'd like to know what it is that you are doing about such a serious, persistent problem amongst our hardworking staff.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Gwynne-Butler.
Thank you both for your questions. Roger, I think the question around the financial implications is generally around if something happens that we have to address. I wouldn't see it coming back to Cabinet or members unless it was outside the delegated authority of the assistant directors or directors thereon. Unless it's a brand new policy, there wouldn't be any reason for us to see it. But I do take your point that if it falls out of that remit, we will have to see it. So well made. Councillor Buckley, I think I, like yourself, are concerned about mental health generally. It's something I've suffered with myself in the past, so I do understand that. But at the same time, I think our level of absences are well within the sector, especially within the region, and obviously 25% of those being mental health. I think with the occupational health service and the support, as I said in my introduction, that we are encouraging managers to refer staff for support internally at the earliest opportunity. And other than doing that, obviously, I can make a meeting if you wish to talk with Carol further. Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 8, which is the financial monitoring, quarter 2, 2023-24. Councillor Gwynne-Butler.
Councillor Gwynne-Butler, Portfolio Holder for Finance, Corporate Resources and Communities. I bring forward the outcome for quarter 2 as the next chapter of the journey we are on with the MTFS. This was debated at length last Wednesday at the Transformation Scrutiny. We must be focused on what we initially agreed as our roadmap for achieving this, which was agreed by Council back in March, where a full list of savings proposals and actions were agreed. As we started the journey, we always said it would be a bumpy road and some changes may have to be made, with further obstacles and pressures would appear, and my goodness, they have. The report in front of you is one of the largest midterm outcome reports that has been reported by this authority, and it provides an immense amount of detail and reassurance for Council of the work that has been done, what is underway and what challenges lay ahead. This is no mean feats, and days and weeks of work has gone in to provide the detailed report by the financial team, for which I am extremely grateful, as it gives us confidence on our journey, where we have been, what we have done, and where we are going. There is challenges ahead, and there will be more, but we are not ignoring them. We are preparing for them, and always trying to be ahead of the game when we know they are coming, and developing counteractions to ensure we stay on the journey. I'm pleased around the reserve position that we are projecting, which is within the guidelines of SIPFA, but also gives the authority a degree of future financial sustainability. The report was as I said, was well discussed as scrutiny, and I welcome any new debate. I move the recommendations in 3.2 A to F. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. I'm happy to second that report. Councillor Owens.
Thank you, Chairman. And yeah, thank you for the staff involved in the production of this report, and to Graham Butler, because I know that he is pushing to get as much information in the public domain as possible. It is appreciated. However, there are as few questions that I and we have, and I'll concentrate on just two parts of this report, and that is in 2.12. It does state about the savings that are taking place. By my calculation, at the end of Q1, according to the previous report, 67% of the budget that was approved in February had been delivered, or thought it would be delivered by the end of the year. Using the figures there, that is now increased to 74%. Just a 7% increase in that 3 months. Halfway through the year, just 74%. And I see there's 13.4 million still to be identified, and effectively agreed that it can be delivered. And then in part B of 2.12, it goes on about long-term plans are set out which demonstrate success. Short-term funding will be made available while successful demand management measures are implemented. This refers to the over £20 million in extra costs that the council has incurred this year, and short-term management, I assume, will mean earmarked reserves and general reserves being used. And I note in part C, it just mentions 3.6. Now that assumes a lot more is going to be delivered than the 74% that is mentioned by me earlier on. And then if one goes over the page and goes down there, there are listed there the revenue effects. There's 13.4 under review, which I referred to, 22.2, which is the demand-led services increase, and it balances out to 23.4 at the year end. We're 6 months into the year, and what is being said there, we have still got to save 23 million. And I will make a reference to the financial projections for next year, which came to the October cabinet, where it shows an overspend there of £26 million. So this year we may be able to using all the earmarked reserves and the general reserves, but for next year the situation looks exceedingly bleak. Would you agree with that? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Butler.
Firstly, Roger, thank you. I really appreciate your kind words for the staff and everything else, and the openness, which I do appreciate. I think, as Ben explained at scrutiny, it is quite difficult for financial officers to have a crystal ball to actually see exactly where we're going to go and where we're going to get to the end of the year. And to a certain extent, in any financial reporting, these are projections and they will change. Admittedly, when we did the initial savings, that was the easy fruit to a certain extent. And as we go through this year, it will become more and more harder to actually get the other savings out of the organisation. And I actually think you mentioned the small increase in Q2. Let's not forget that we have saved £38 million, which is probably more savings that this organisation has actually made over the previous 5 to 10 years. Or 5 or 6 years, I should say. And it is an immense achievement by this staff to actually bring that forward to keep us financially sustainable during this year. I noticed as well, you mentioned in item B, if I can just get it back up. The use of the earmarked reserves for the demand management of social care and children's is going to be vital, and that will be coming out of the earmarked reserves in the short term. Now, like I said at the beginning, this is looking at what may happen. I hope that situation really improves and we don't have to do it, but we do have to put a plan in place to cover every single thing that may happen, and that is exactly what we're doing, and we can cover it. So I'm happy on that. And again, when it comes to the estimates of what's going to happen at the year end, I am content that we will get to that 95% of the 51 million. The pressures around adult and social care, the 20 million in-house, is going to be a struggle, but I think we have got it covered. To a certain extent, I do agree with you. Next year, it is not about an overspend. It is about a shortage of budget for demand. There is a big difference. We're not overspending because we want to. We're actually haven't got enough money to deal with the level of statutory demand. And I think that's the message we've got to give to our MPs. And it's vitally important that we do that. So I'll leave it at that, Leader.
Oh, sorry, you didn't have your hand up before. Okay, well, Councillor Buckley and then Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report, which we've already discussed once at scrutiny, and some questions were raised there regarding some of the overspends and some of the savings that have been identified. So one area of concern, which is explained on page 25, is why do we have, for the second year running, such a huge overspend on children's agency social workers? Last year, this council overspent £1.3 million on agency social care workers, and Gwilym Butler quite rightly challenged me and the Labour Party to bring forward an alternative proposal, which we willingly did. And we suggested that this council should pay our social workers more money, give them better conditions, employ them directly, and enter into an agreement with our neighbours, particularly in Telford and Wrekin, but also looking at some of our other neighbours, perhaps the new ones you have the strategic alliance with, so that we wouldn't be hemorrhaging amongst ourselves, but we would all be paying a better rate. We showed how that was not only cost neutral, but actually retained and provided a better quality of care because of continuity. That suggestion was dismissed. We were told that you had a plan and that the numbers were going down. This year, I'm rather dismayed to see that the number has gone up. This year's overspend is 1.624 million on agency social workers. So could you please reconsider Labour's alternative budget? Can we please start to employ our social workers directly? Let's get continuity of care. Let's retain our highly qualified and skilled workforce, and let's stop wasting money by paying agencies a fee on top of the things we're already doing. I have a question as well regarding the assumptions. So the overall position, and I'm glad to see it's all collated now in one place, that the overall overspend at 32 million follows through some various assumptions. The assumption that Councillor Evans has already explained, that there is an assumption this council will deliver a further £8.2 million in savings, an assumption that you will be able to find somewhere and identify sources of 20.5 million short-term funding. As I understand it, you've only identified 7 million so far. So I'd like to understand, what is the plan B if the council doesn't save the 8.2 million, perhaps because of demand pressures over winter, perhaps because of external shocks? What happens if you can't identify these other earmarked reserves that you can unlock to move 20 million across? What is the plan B? And my final question, and forgive me if I've misunderstood, but you talk about the gap in the capital programme. You say we have a shortfall next year of 21.8 million, and that will accumulate to 46 million the year after. And you state in there that all the high confidence capital receipts have already been counted. And what this leaves us with is a necessity to borrow. So at current borrowing rates, that would require at least another £1 million from our revenue budget to pay back that loan. Could you assure me, and forgive me if I've not read it correctly, that that is also included in your assumptions for the total 32 million overspend? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. I'll ask Councillor Dean to cover me first. Councillor Dean.
I've got.
I'll come back to Councillor Dean, but in terms of the point that Councillor Buckley made right at the beginning regarding the agency social workers, I think the difficulty is, Councillor Buckley, and I think you're being perhaps a little bit disingenuous to the staff, is that actually you cannot get social workers, full stop. Talk to any single organisation. You talked about the Marches Forward partnership. One of the things that they said, one of their biggest issues is social workers. And we're not just talking children's social workers here. I understand you were asked to provide a letter from the leader of Telford and Wrekin Council offering to enter into partnership. Have you got that?
I think we'll be looking at that in our alternative budget.
Okay. Because I understood that was not the case. Because I think if you remember rightly, members, we actually did put our social worker rates up, only to be followed immediately by Telford and Wrekin increasing those again. So I think that's the problem that we've got. So that was just my point. Gwilym, did you want to come back on the other questions by Councillor Buckley?
I think the bit about the social workers has been covered. I am chair of West Midlands Employers, which actually covers the whole region, and this is a regional issue. And I agree with you, Leader, if we start increasing our rates, it will just become a rabbit run for more higher and higher rates all across the country. It is lack of supply, and actually changing the agency market may well help to reduce the cost overall, and that is where West Midlands Employers are going and working with the major authorities in actually doing that. In respect of the reserves meeting the short-term issues, all the information is in the report. If you look there on the reserves report table, it shows the earmarked reserves being taken out should we have to cover that 20 million. And I hope it won't be that 20 million. And likewise, there is still earmarked reserved for a further gap should we need it. So there is funds there. Going to the capital, that was just for your revenue question. Going on to the capital report and the actual estimated borrowing that actually is endorsed within the capital programme is all transformed from the Treasury report. We've got a historical Treasury report coming up shortly, and that Treasury report actually puts the cost of what any borrowing will be in the future, and then that is transformed over as part of the MTFS. So everything is measured in through the Treasury report and the appropriate interest rates. So I'm quite happy and confident that all the information we have in this major report is the best position we can get to at this stage. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Well, Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Leader. I suppose the first thing I just think we all need to reflect on is the growing pressures, 2.7 million in just one quarter, on residential placements for children, and that tells us something about the pressures on families through years of austerity and increasing levels of desperation, frankly, in some families. But it also tells us something about the fact that we haven't got that right in previous years, and I hope that we are now beginning to get that right. There certainly seems to be some moves in the right direction, but it just, it's a tragedy that we've got to the state we're in. My specific question, my first one is actually just a technical point. There's a table I'm going to lose my pages now because in the capital section 7, where it states, apologies, I will find it nearly there. I'll go on to my other ones and come back to that. Oh, thank you very much. Is that it? Yeah, beg your pardon. So this is on page 16, capital investment. There's a column that says 2023-24 actual year-to-date spend as a percentage of budgeted year-to-date spend. I'm just wondering if that's a misprint, because the percentages are sort of, between 0.06% and 26%. I would get it if that was a percentage of the total budget for the year, but it's presented as a percentage of the amount we would have expected to have spent by now. That's how I read it, and that seems like a very odd figure. So I'll leave that one with you to think about. My other one is just to sort of note, really, in some of the detail in the report, just in terms of unevenness across different directorates. So there are specific references to underperformance in terms of the target operating model and getting leadership right. I think there's 4 of them, but they're all within the Place Directorate. I just think that needs to be noted and perhaps commented on. And my final one is just with regard to the comment on Veolia. I am a little bit concerned. We still don't have a waste minimisation strategy. We still don't have any KPIs on waste minimisation. And this seems to suggest, the comment in Veolia seems to suggest that there's a bit of a perverse incentive to actually increase the amount of waste that goes to Veolia in order to then get an income from the energy from waste facility. And I certainly think that is a perverse incentive and not one that is healthy for our environment and for the overall target of actually reducing waste arisings.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Butler, are you going to require?
Thank you, Leader. I tend to agree with you regarding the children's issues, Julian. Personally, and talking to other peers around the region, as I do, from a finance point of view, most authorities are now in the same boat, and I think it is an outfall from the pandemic, and we're actually still mopping up because a lot of people weren't picked up at the early stages in lockdown, and I'm not using that as an excuse, but and we need to get that early intervention in as soon as possible. In respect of the capital, I don't think I've ever seen a capital budget report that has actually said 100% spent to balance. It is always a percentage of, and very often with these projects, we may well put the whole amount in at the beginning, but it takes 2 to 3 years for it to actually be delivered in full. And that's why you see a smaller percentage. It's certainly something I'll keep an eye on for the next quarter and the final quarter, Julian, and perhaps come back to you. James, if you can make a note of that and we get some more detail to you, because it is an interesting area to look at. Again, I can't comment on Veolia, unfortunately. It falls outside my remit. I just do the sums. Thanks.
Yeah, I pick up the Veolia one. It's not about increasing our waste to Veolia. It's about opening up further opportunities for other organisations to use the ERF where there is a revenue impact. Councillor Hurst-Knight.
Sorry, thank you, Leader. Quite a lot being discussed about my portfolio, so I thought it was just really important. I know we talk about data, but behind every single piece of data is a child, a young person or a family. So just to give you some context about the work that we are doing, we had Child X that was initially in a crisis placement of over £11,000 per week, now returned home, zero cost, but better outcomes. So that happens by us working with an extensive range of agencies, family group conferences, the exploitation team. We've added capacity there. We'll look at alternative provision, alternative timetables and support, and Child X, Young Person X, is now back with that family, well supported. This is the work of stepping stones. This is the reality of what our vision was, and it's working. I think we've stepped down, I will try and find out for you, 21 children coming into residential and further 15 through the stepping stones process. We need to keep at this. The early help offer, yes, Councillor Dean, it is working. You'll see all over social media, these non-judgment, no stigma, drop-in sessions are working, and we need to keep on with that. They are in and around Shropshire and they've been invaluable to the team. I would like to say green shoots, we're crossing everything. But, you know, we know that get in early, help families, it's working. And just on a point of very quickly on social workers, I know it's been discussed. We've had our apprentices through, we're on the second cohort. So we looked at the national problem, we did something about it. We could see this was coming. So, you know, we keep going at growing our own, and a further 16 agency converted to permanent. We're doing our very best. And there's a further task force looking at that next week. So we're absolutely on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurst-Knight. One final question, Julianne, then we'll move to the vote.
Yes, I just wanted to come back. It's really positive to hear that these early interventions are being used to save the council from the most expensive placements for children in care. But as I reported back to the scrutiny committee, we are hearing an increasing number of residents through our casework load where young people need to access that early intervention, but they're not in care. So what they are going into crisis and they are seeking mental health support, They are seeking specialist education support. They're on a waiting list for TMBSS. We understand that not enough places are commissioned for specialist education support. We understand there's up to a 2-year wait for mental health support for young people who are in crisis. And I have examples of young people who are on a reduced timetable specialist support where the support workers who are supposed to be helping them are trying to rush them back into a full-time school because that resource is under so much pressure. So let's be really honest about stepping down. There is a lot of stepping down of expensive support for young people who are not in care. And I understand that the children in care are your priority because they're the most expensive. But can we also please have this same attitude to those children who are not in care? Because the same applies. That early intervention and support will also prevent them deteriorating and ending up in care. And we need to see that same approach, please, applied across the piece.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Perhaps the point I'd like to make is that when we look at stepping children down in care, it's not to do with finance. It's to do with what is best for the child.
Why isn't it happening in non-expensive scenarios?
Excuse me. Thank you. It is absolutely about the best outcome for the child. Rachel and I were on a call only on Monday regarding the situation with mental health support for children. We are absolutely not happy about the support that these children get.
Sorry, Leader, can I just come back on that? There is no waiting list for early help in the council. Absolutely not.
Okay.
There's none. And we discussed at length at people an overview committee, scrutiny committee about the mental health, and every member's had an email looking to extend that offer from Liam. So we're absolutely, behind this. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a proposer. I'm happy to second. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 9, Treasury Management Update Q2 23-24. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. I'm just waiting on my laptop to load up. I'll be with you as soon as I can. Councillor Gwilym Butler, Portfolio Holder for Finance, Corporate Resources and Communities. I bring forward the Treasury Management Update for Q2 23-24. Again, this is housekeeping, which we bring forward on a regular basis under good guidance as good practice under SIT for guidance. I simply move the recommendation 3.1 to 3.12 to be noted and review the position as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Have I got a seconder for that one?
I second that, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Schofield. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I note the investment portfolio is now approximately £58 million. In previous years, I thought I'd seen it well into 3 figures. Maybe just a few years ago this was, but I do note that the Northwest Relief Road at present, the spending there is somewhere around about £22-25 million. If and when that was cancelled, maybe in May 25, depending on what the new council wanted, there could well be representations made to government to transfer that money and make it a capital cost rather than putting it on the revenue expenditure to capitalise it, which some local authorities in England have had to do in order to balance their budgets. To take £25 million from that 58 million does not leave a lot in our capital reserves. Are there any thoughts on that 58 million and where it has come down to, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Interesting question. Historically, I think going back to 2019, the capital balances were boosted dramatically by COVID and the amount of funding that the government actually put into us. So those quarterly reports you've seen since 2019 have historically been a lot higher and perhaps didn't give a true picture because a lot of that money was ring fenced for certain purposes but held us in our capital. In respect of the Northwest Relief Road, obviously it wouldn't be my intention to cancel it, but I don't see any government of any colour bailing you out of 25 million's worth of capital. We'll wait and see. As far as I'm concerned, I think the Treasury would laugh at you. So you'll have to find it yourself from some other area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler.
Sorry, Chairman, I was not expecting that 25 million coming from government. It would be up to Shropshire Council to actually sort out the 25 million, but we could ask the government for permission for us to capitalise it and transfer it to our capital budget, which has happened with a number of local authorities in England who have incurred expenses from capital, and they have asked, instead of transferring it to their revenue side of their balance sheet, to transfer it to their capital one and use their capital money to actually do it, capitalise it, as I read it in some of the media.
Yeah, James?
Thanks, Chair. Interesting question, Rod. If the government give a dispensation, they can give any dispensation they want around the funding, so it can be charged to capital if they give such a dispensation. But that is, of course, on the assumption that it was cancelled and the government were considering the implications of that cancellation and were comfortable with that.
Morris?
Is there an asset to capitalise when you do that?
Very interesting question, Councillor Morris. There is no asset. That's the problem. I have a proposer. I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 10, which is the Performance Monitoring Report, Q2. So much easier to read. Councillor Rob Macy.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Robert Macy, Portfolio Holder for Culture and Digital. You've got the report in front of you for Q2. The Q2 performance dashboard now contains 81% of the KPIs identified for the Shropshire Plan, which is 73 out of 90. The remaining 17 are planned to be in the Q3 dashboard. The written report just highlights the exceptions. This quarter, there's 3 exceptions, and 58% of the KPIs are rated as green, showing positive progress towards delivery of the Shropshire Plan. You will note there's a number of the KPIs, 25% of them don't have a red, amber, green rating yet. That's due to the fact that these are the baseline figures. So as we add more data to those, that will come into effect. Within the exceptions, there's one that falls within my portfolio that I'm happy to pick up if anyone's got any questions on those. Other than that, I move the recommendations at 3.2.
Councillor Macy, do I have a seconder for that report?
Yes, Councillor Cecilia Mockley, portfolio holder for adult social care and public health. Happy to second this one.
Thank you, Councillor Mockley. Julia?
Thank you for the report. And since the last time we've looked at it, there are more indicators in there and more targets. And as you say, most of them are performing pretty well. There are still some indicators which for some reason don't carry a target, and I'd like to understand why not. So the percentage of principal roads requiring maintenance and the percentage of non-principal roads requiring maintenance, we can see what our percentage is, but there's no target. And so therefore, there's no way to indicate whether we're succeeding or failing. So that doesn't feel that we're really monitoring. We're just being told what a number is. So I feel there's a gap there. And on the final slide, the number of complaints we can see has increased, and meanwhile, the number of complaint investigations has drastically dropped. So what we're seeing is more people feeling okay to come forward and say something isn't right, but the council deciding more often than not to investigate why that is the case. I'm sure that you're about to defend that with a really good explanation, but the third data piece, which is under there, shows that 80% of complaints to the Ombudsman are upheld. So more residents are unhappy. The council is choosing not to find out why. And the third party independent Ombudsman, in 8 cases out of every 10, upholds the view of the resident. So rather concerned that we're not investigating thoroughly enough complaints. I'd like to understand why that is, and I think that we should be looking at that indicator next time. Of course, some of those are not targets, so you wouldn't otherwise report it to us. It will never appear in the exception report, so it falls to people like me to ask the question.
Councillor Macy.
So
I'll take the Ombudsman one first, and yes, I am going to robustly defend it, and I'm sure you're going to take great note of what I do in defending it. But we went through all of the Ombudsman statistics in terms of reporting back, and they're upheld rates. And we were talking, I think, I won't say this is the correct figure, but I think we were talking in the tens or something, 10 to 15 cases in total that we're talking about the 82%. So from that regard, I think in terms of the ones coming in and being upheld or investigated, I think I'm also right in saying from last time that it's because sometimes they are not actually complaints. There are other ways of dealing with those. They've been requests for services and other things like that, so they get diverted. But I'm quite happy to refer you to the last meeting where we went through all of those in detail with the Ombudsman report. So in terms of that one, in terms of the targets for the highways, obviously we're working with the individual services, the team that are working hard on this in the insights team and so on, work with those. I can get you the specific answers on those in terms of which targets are available or not, and we can provide those to you. So,
just for clarity, will the target now be added to that KPI for next time?
So for clarity, I will go away, speak to the insights team. They will speak to the service because they rely on what the service is providing as well. So I will come back to you on those and supply the response.
Thank you. I think that's always the danger of quoting percentages rather than numbers, isn't it, when it comes to that? Okay. Sorry, Councillor Dean. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, again, I suppose it's again this issue of where targets are missing, but also in terms of where the latest data is. I'm just looking at the healthy environment page, and the latest data for most of those is 2023, but the net carbon emissions says 2021, and it's heading in the wrong direction, which is somewhat concerning that it stands out both in terms of we don't have the up-to-date data and it's heading in the wrong direction. So I wonder when we will have more up-to-date data for that target.
Councillor Macy?
I think what I would say is we're reliant on the load of different data sources coming into this. We've said that this first year of implementing these and putting them up to speed will be a case of seeing what's available, when it's available, is it robust, and so on. I can't speak to the individual items. Something I would recommend in the future, if you do have concerns about the individual items, the team are happy to work with members. We've said that throughout the year, through scrutiny, with individual members as to what's available and when. And if you've got specific questions, for example, for this meeting, I can be a lot more prepared to give you those sorts of answers. If I've got a little bit of sight of them ahead of time, I'm happy to bring those sorts of answers to the meeting. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Macy. Makes sense to me. So I have a proposal. I've got a second. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 11, Shropshire Towns and Rural Housing Performance Update. Councillor Dean Carroll.
Thank you, Leader. It's been quite an eventful, momentous year at Shropshire Towns and Rural Housing Association, with changes in senior leadership positions and on the board. I'm very pleased and assured that as an organisation, managing our housing revenue account, but most importantly, managing our housing stock and tenants on our behalf, that it is an organisation that's heading squarely in the right direction. The new leadership has reinvigorated the organisation, and some excellent appointments have been made both to the executive and middle management of the organisation. As part of our new management agreement, which we brought to council last December, either last December or this February, we brought to council. And as part of that, we've committed to regular performance updates back to Shropshire Council to lay out how the Almo is performing against the KPIs in the management agreement. Now, all of that information can be found in the appendix. It's an 18-page appendix, which does have quite a bit of information and explanatory notes to the KPIs as well. We are aware and monitoring the underperformance around voids. However, there is an action plan that's already been implemented and externally verified. To deal with that, a team is now in place within Star Housing specifically to improve the performance of the void housing stock. That overall headline performance then leads on to the other exceptions from the targeted performance in the KPIs. They're all connected to that one underlying issue, which Star Housing do have a plan in action to address, because we want to ensure that the maximum possible amount of affordable housing is available for the people of Shropshire. So I think I will leave my introduction at that. I'll do my best to answer any questions that members have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Do I have a seconder for that?
Mark Jones, Economic Development. Yeah, I'd like to second it. I was on the board of Star up until July. I don't think I got thrown off quite, but I left to be a portfolio holder. Yeah, obviously, replacing with super people like Julia. Julia's doing a good job ferreting every questions out and trying to sort it out. It has gone through a big change the last 6 months. Just before I left, we had lots of workshops to just go through from top down to see where we could do the job better. And I think Harpreet Riyat has done a fantastic job, and Julia no doubt will tell us that too. I see on the surveys that the people in Shropshire are happy, the ones in Bridge North, but that's probably always the case. But otherwise, yeah, it's doing a good job. It is what it does on the tin. We are dealing with some very old housing stock, which is going to take a little bit of updating to make Julia's high standards. The carbon footprint, and I'm not sure quite how we're going to do that in the future, what money we're going to get to do that. But I know we've done a little bit of we've got some grant money to do 30 in Caboyne, and I think I haven't seen the surveys coming back of how well they've gone yet, but I think on a little bit of anecdotal evidence that the customers were very happy with the changes. One lady said she came in the house and thought she'd left the heating on, and it wasn't. It was so well insulated. So I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more of that and see whether we can get some more grant funding to start replenishing more of our stock, but it's going to take a long time. So I second the report.
Thank you, Mark. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Chairman. I do pick up and I note the comments of Councillor Dean about the voids and the time there, and in the table that's shown in item 3 in the appendix, it does seem to Q1 22-23 average time in days to relet was 72, but Q1 23-24 had risen to 98 days, which is the wrong direction. We are short of houses, and to see that sort of figure there, can I expect to see at the next report? And I note what was said about staff and etc. And I am a spectator on this. Can we expect to see that to come down to more towards their target of 37 days? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Buckley.
I can start by reassuring Roger Evans. The paragraph below does explain that they are some of the longer standing voids. Previously, they'd done some quick wins because in COVID we couldn't get into properties. So we're now left with the really tough ones. And if you look also, they talk about large scale projects. A lot of them have been adapted for people with disabilities and special needs. I completely second Mark Jones's comments about the huge amount of transformational work that Star has gone through in the last year to really modernise the organisation and really be data driven and to understand all the issues. So they've really drilled down to where the issues are. And yes, we do have an ageing stock, but you know, the biggest asset that Star has is some fantastic support staff. And we had a kind of a jokey debate at those workshops as to whether the asset were the units of property or whether the asset is the tenancies where people have a lovely community to live in. And that's why you've got high happiness rates and satisfaction rates, and that's why the priority has been on repairs for people who are living in properties rather than the voids, because it's all about supporting some of our most vulnerable people. The thing that has been really noted over the last few years is that our residents in social housing are ever more complex in their needs because of the shortage of supply, which means it's much more intensive to support those people in their tenancies with all their other peripheral needs. That is the real beauty of STAR, and that frankly is where the future is going in terms of doing more of that wraparound support for other vulnerable people. So hats off to STAR. I think, you know, to take the positives from this report, and I'd like to say that generally it's a cross-party partnership where we usually work together very well in this area.
Thank you, Julia, and I wholeheartedly echo what you said about communities. I've been lucky enough to be taken around some of the STAR communities, and they've been brilliant. Councillor Dean, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just think we need to recognise that the corollary of what's being said about all this amazing transformation of the way that STAR is managed is that it probably wasn't in a happy place before. And I think certainly from the point of view of being a member of the Asset Assurance Board, it has become clear, I think, that the council probably wasn't getting a very good view under the bonnet, and that work needs to continue. So I just wanted to highlight that really, because I think that members need to be aware that we, as I understand it as a member of that board, that there is still work to do to make sure that we do have a really good view under the bonnet. The second thing I just wanted to say is to welcome the nice chunky section here around carbon decarbonisation and around insulation of the homes. And I absolutely recognise that the challenges, both financial and in terms of the skills agenda, I keep pushing that one. I really think it should have been in our economic strategy at a higher level, and it isn't. But in particular, the fact that STAR is building to a fabric first approach and is putting in heat pumps and is building homes which are cheap to run and warm is fantastic, and I wish that all Cornovi houses were reaching the same standard.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Dean, I'll start that again. Dean, Councillor Carroll.
Thank you. As a Khalid, I respond to anything. I've been called far worse just this morning. Firstly, if I take it out of order a little bit and say thank you very much to Councillor Buckley for the very supportive comments, and also her support as a board member of STAR Housing, playing that role as a critical friend, but also as a council's person, ensuring that our tenants get the level of support and also the service they require. As my colleague Councillor Jones has said, I also agree and I'm thankful to Councillor Buckley for kicking off the explanation around the void turnover. Now, if I then move on back a step to Councillor Evans in terms of the void performance, Councillor Buckley is right that this also accounts for longer term vacant properties that accumulated largely throughout the pandemic. If you look at paragraph 3.3 in the appendix, it does say that the average void turnaround time for properties that have been handed back to STAR Housing in the current financial year is 50 days. So the way that that's virtually doubled in a quarterly performance is because of a small but persistent number of much longer term projects that have required a large amount of investment and work to bring back into use. But the routine day-to-day performance is improving and has improved already, but we all expect that to continue to improve and those void periods to continue to fall. Moving on then to Councillor Dean, yes, you're absolutely right, and you and I have had these conversations through the Asset Assurance Board. I was possibly the most critical councillor of the performance of Star at one point a number of years ago. The journey that it has come on, I think, is no better demonstrated by the fact that I had the confidence last year to stand up and move the renewal of the management agreement for a further 10 years because of the level of assurance and confidence I have in both our ability and our infrastructure and resource in place as a local authority to manage that as the client, to manage it as the shareholder of the company, to manage it as the commissioner, but also my level of confidence in the board and management team of Star Housing, that they are aligned entirely with the priorities of Shropshire Council in terms of the Shropshire plan and in terms of what we need to deliver, particularly around affordable housing, particularly around improvements in carbon performance and environmental performance, and that Star Housing is now in the place that we want it to be as our arm's length management organisation, and its metrics are heading in the right direction. And as the further down the KPI report shows, that actually the level of satisfaction for Star Housing exceeds its peer group. Now, admittedly, the peer group for Almos of under 10,000 stock is not the largest. We're talking in the tens, low dozens of comparator organisations, but Star Housing is outperforming those in terms of customer satisfaction, and that was not always the case. So, to give my assurance to Cabinet that I have confidence in both our ability as a local authority to manage the relationship and in the ability of Star management and board management at all levels to deliver against both what they need to deliver as a business and what we need them to deliver as a council. I think we need to also pay tribute to the work that has been done in Star Housing and has been done internally in our own housing team to achieve that turnaround. Because it would have been very easy at one point in time to say that's broken and we throw the baby out with the bathwater. Whereas what we've achieved is to align our housing stock with the priorities of Shropshire Council, which are informed by the priorities of our residents. And that has led us to have not only a better relationship and a better managed organisation, but a greater input, a greater say, and a greater ability to influence the social and affordable housing sector throughout Shropshire, through our ALMO and through our role as a commissioner. So I think we need to also pay tribute to all of the staff, both of Shropshire Council and of Star Housing, who have gone on that journey and have put in the work required to achieve that turnaround.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dean. Councillor Prescott.
Thank you, Leader. I've dealt with Star Housing on numerous occasions for some of my constituents in the ward, and I find them very helpful to, especially with the more elderly. They will come out and make sure that they're all right and get the work. I think they prioritise the more elderly people, and that's to be commended.
Yeah, I have to say they do create a real community feeling. Brilliant. Okay, so I've got a proposal, I've got a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 12, which is the sand covenant proposal. So this report's a bit unusual in the respect that it contains a draft protocol for the council when considering to sign up to specific covenants and campaigns, but also, if the protocol is approved by us today, for the council to sign up to the sand covenant. And SAND stands for Safe Ageing No Discrimination. The council signed up to covenants before. The ones members will be most familiar with is the Armed Forces Covenant and probably the Care Leavers Covenant, which was signed not that long ago. But as many more organisations use covenants and council receives more requests, it was felt by cabinet members and officers that a simple protocol should be developed so that we can ensure transparency and consistency, but also to ensure that the covenant and campaign aligns with the Shropshire Plan and the council's public sector equality duty, which is an important point, and it's set out in the Equality Act of 2010. So the draft protocol can be found at Appendix 1. It's relatively simple. I hope it's self-explanatory, and I hope you will see the benefits of having this document in place. So that's the first part of it. The second part, with specific reference to the Sand Covenant, the request from Sand for Shropshire Council to sign its covenant was made quite some time ago now, probably coming up to 12 months. Sand is a community interest company based in Shropshire, working to improve the experience of older and old, I love that phrase, older and old LGBT plus people living in Shropshire, specifically around accessing health and social care and related services. Groups and organisations in Shropshire and Telford and Wrekin local authority areas are invited to sign up through a covenant to 5 broad commitments. We would then agree an annual action plan for change and report progress and share that progress and the next year's plan at an annual Sand event. And this, as I said, this normally takes place in around November time. So the 5 commitments are, and they all relate to older and old LGBT plus people, which is commit to providing the best possible quality services, commit to learning what life can be and has been like for different LGBT plus people, commit to vocally and visually supporting groups, commit to creating meaningful opportunities for LGBT plus people and groups to influence what we do, and to commit to assess and evidence change, including work carried out to engage with that group of people. So many organisations have already signed up this covenant, including, by coincidence, my own GP surgery, which I found out yesterday morning when reading their latest newsletter. The intention of the council as a proposed signatory would be to work with Sand, as with others in the voluntary and community sector, regarding not only health and care needs, actually, but also overall social inclusion. Assurance will be given to Sand that we would not expect them to speak as the sole advocate on behalf of the diverse communities, and that we would also not expect them to speak on behalf of the older section of our community either. These are a specific groups. Getting older comes to us all, and we should do our utmost to ensure that everyone has equal access to our services and that we as an organisation listen to and take note of the lived experience of all residents. I'm happy to move the recommendations, but I am going to read those out because, as I said, it is in 2 parts. So the first recommendation is that we adopt the proposed protocol, which is attached to Appendix 1. And the second part is that sign up to the Safe Ageing No Discrimination Sand Covenant as the first to be considered under this protocol, with the following provisos: that assurances be given by Sand to seek to support work across the protected characteristic groupings of age and sexual orientation, recognising depth and diversity within these groupings, as well as their particular field of working with older people, and that officers engage with Sand itself and share and develop joint good practice with our other advocacy organisations to complete engagement efforts with and for all protected characteristic grouping. Forgive me for reading those out, but they are quite important. So I'm happy to move the recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Butler, thank you. Do you wish to speak now? Or?
Yes, if I may. If
You
that's
certainly
all right.
can.
Councillor Gwilym Butler, portfolio holder for Finance, Corporate Resources and Communities. I'm very happy to actually second this report. To just say a few words. I think it's interesting for us to note that by 2030, there'll probably be more people over 65 in this county than under. And so the demographics of the county, we actually need, as an organisation, we need to be aware of that. To actually publicise this inclusion will go a long way, because I know personally that people in those minorities suffer a lot of anxiety and mental health problems when contacting the establishment, so to speak. So I'm more than happy to do that. And furthermore, I'm minded and subject to a conversation leader when we actually look to our social value and our commissioning, which I know I've been working on with Tim and Nigel. I'm wondering whether we need to they have to sign up to our covenants as well to become an inclusive county where we spend our money.
Yeah.
So it's something for us to take away and look at, but personally very happy to support. Thank you. and I will be over 65 and minority by the time we're 2030 as well.
Councillor Dean.
Thank you. Very much welcome both these proposals. I just really wanted to share, I suppose, my learning, because I went to a sound event a few years ago, and I think the thing that struck me was the sort of the challenge of, especially if you find yourself going into care, for example, going into a home or something like that, and suddenly you're effectively back in the closet without any choice at all, especially if the culture of that place has not taken these things on. And that's the huge blow for people who may have already had to, spend some difficult period coming out of the closet in the first place. So I just wanted to share that with people, because that was the thing that I took away from that event, and I can see huge value in us adopting this. Thank you.
Couldn't agree more. Councillor Buckley.
Yeah, just to add my voice and that of the Labour group, that we wholeheartedly support this, and all the events you've been to have been excellent. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Councillor Owens.
Just to echo the comments made by the last two speakers, yes, it is the way the council should be going.
Thank you very much indeed. I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Item number 13, Ombudsman. Oh, this is relevant, isn't it? Ombudsman Complaint Handling Code. Councillor Rob Macy.
Thank you, Leader. Robert Macy, portfolio holder for Culture and Digital. The report you got in front of you is consulting, the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman is consulting on the Complaint Handling Code, which has an impact, obviously, as we've already talked about, on how we deal with complaints. The paper is seeking the approval for the draft response, which is attached. The proposed consultation proposes a number of changes, which would have an impact on our ability to deliver, and that's what we've picked up in our response. The main ones are reducing response times from stage 1 from 30 to 10 working days, and stage 2 from 30 to 20 working days. Obviously, at the moment, as we've reported previously, we run at about 26 days for stage 1. And as you'll see in the response, the risk around this as well is some services, there is a single person who delivers that service. So if they go on holiday for a fortnight, there is no way we can meet the standards. So we're expressing our concern within the response around that particular measure. We have to make reasonable adjustments for individuals where appropriate under the Equality Act, and record any protected characteristics and vulnerabilities. That will need a bit of building into the process for us. Appointing a member responsible for complaints who must receive regular updates. Currently that's covered by myself as part of the portfolio, but this would formalise that and add additional parts into that. And then that we must also ask for feedback on service, including details of how people can complain. Just on that slightly wider point, I'm also going to try and work out how we can also allow people to give us comments or compliments in a wider basis as well. We're very good at asking the one end of the question and sometimes not so much the other. So, but the suggested response is attached. So I'll move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Macy. Do I have a seconder for that?
Councillor Cecilia Motley, portfolio for Adult Social Care and Public Health.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What I will say that obviously this does not just impact on our particular council, it impacts on every council, and I know that I don't think from what I've seen so far, I think our response is very similar to a lot of other responses from council who are extremely worried about that change to the deadlines. Roger, then Julia.
Thank you, Chairman. I note what you have said, Chairman. I know the Cabinet is reaching that decision, but how the council organises responses to complaints and grievances, it is up to the council to organise responses. If I'm a member of the public and I am waiting to have a complaint looked at, I think what the Ombudsman is recommended should be the aim of this authority. We have been found at fault previously, and that is being addressed. But I would not be supporting, if I was a member of the Cabinet, I would not be supporting what is proposed.
Yeah, just to say that my role on the Star Housing Board means that I am the member responsible for complaints, and I was sent to the National Housing Ombudsman Training Day with all the other national members to learn exactly about this. It was the same day that you were all in here discussing the North West Relief Road on the Northern Planning Committee. That's how I remember it. And the issue of the going from 10 days to 30 days was really important. And the information that we fed back is that actually we also need the Ombudsman to reply to us promptly. We wait in a queue sometimes for 6-9 months until our turn comes. And they said, well, that's just how the system works. And we actually had quite a detailed discussion that they could simply use an automated algorithm which could alert us when we're a few weeks away from our turn, so that our officer could start to prepare that documentation, especially if somebody is away. And they took that as really constructive dialogue. So it will be difficult to move from 30 days to 10, but we've started that dialogue about how to ease that. And I would just very politely challenge the paragraph that says that there are no financial implications. Obviously, it's going to put pressure on the staff team to be able to do that. So we do just need to be quite realistic. When we put pressure on staff and resource, that generally does have a financial implication.
Yeah, thank you, Julie. That's a very good point. In case you haven't noticed, you suddenly got Mr. Collard's undying gratitude, I think. Well, perhaps not undying, but you're absolutely right that it makes temporary, probably, yeah. It does make a difference when they don't respond. Councillor Macy.
I think that bit's picked up in the section before, the risk assessment and opportunities about the resource implications. I think it's, as you say, it's probably too complex to work out the exact financial implication, given it affects every service across the council. So, but the resource element of it is picked up in the section before.
So I've got a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. And finally, the date of the next meeting, Wednesday, the 13th of December. What? Ho, ho, ho. Thank you very much indeed, everybody.